Hello again. I am jazzed to be introducing you to one of my friends, Serena. She is such an amazing light in my life, and I had the pleasure of meeting her through an online community group that we both joined. I feel like early last year, so early 2020, and with the craziness that was 2020, it was such a beautiful friendship that came out of this online community. I love her wisdom, her take, all of our conversations. There's so much juiciness that comes through every time. She is a women's sexuality coach and really tapping into the feminine essence and what that means, what that looks like, what it means to own and embody who you are as a woman with no shame, no guilt, and truly being unapologetically you. I can't wait for you guys to listen to her lens on this. As you know, I've been having a few different female presences with this lens on just harnessing our sensuality and sexuality as women and redefining our bodies and taking our power back in just so many different ways. So enjoy today's episode. Please let me know what you think. Share it with a friend, comment down below, and yeah, let's enjoy it together. Enjoy. Hi, Serena. Welcome.
Hi, Shay. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited and grateful to be on your show.
Of course, I'm so excited. Welcome to Being Human. I wanted to just give whoever is watching and tuning in today a little intro to who you are. So, where do you live? What do you like to do? What do you do in the world? All of that good stuff.
Beautiful. Yeah. So my name is Serena V. Amoroso, and I am currently in North Carolina. So wherever you're listening, we're currently in a global pandemic. And before this, I was a nomad living in Bali and was going to move to New York and then Thailand. And obviously things have shifted. So I've been in North Carolina by the beach, which has been a beautiful blessing to be with my family. And I support women, I guide women in coming back to the truth of who they are as love. So it's really my mission on this earth at this point in time to activate women into their inner magic, into their power, their pleasure, their purpose, their partnership, their play, lots of P words, and doing this through embodiment work. So it's not just conceptually understanding these different things or concepts, but it's really bringing it through the body because that's where I have found the deepest healing and really connecting women with their deep feminine, sort of this feminine essence that we've forgotten or there's been a distortion around or even a view of weakness around it, and finding the beauty once again and reclaiming that, reactivating that. And within that, also supporting women with sacred sexuality, coming back to their sexual power, the beauty of that energy, the potency of that energy, and also orgasmic relationships. So really how we can all ebb and flow together. During this conversation, I'm not sure how much of that will come up, but I will be speaking in heteronormative language, but know that these are universal energies that apply to, we have them all within, masculine and feminine, and you can play with them in any dynamic within yourself and in relationship. So that's a little bit about where I am currently.
I love that. Thank you. And yeah, it's so interesting because by the time the episode comes out, I like really wonder where we will have evolved in the pandemic aspect because all of these episodes are going to be coming out next year, the very beginning of 2021, and 2020 has just been such a wild year. So I'm excited to hear like the feedback and like what people bring to this and what has shifted and yeah, the context of it. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. You said so many amazing things, but with the premise of the show, I really want to give people perspective on just the different walks of life and success and how each of us as humans are going to experience a different human emotional experience, right? But at the root of all of it, we all feel the same emotions, and that's what connects us, and that's what's so beautiful about it. So in your words, from your journey and your lens now, how would you explain life and success to another?
The humanness of life. I love that you're sharing this, and that's the theme. and how we all experience the same things, regardless of what the context is around it. We're experiencing the emotion. And so for me, the journey of life and meaning of success, like life is about the embodiment and expression of love, being devoted to truth and love and unconditional love. So, right, there can be so many things attached to what love is, but it's really this pure acceptance piece and being in service and being, as I spoke about a lot with like pleasure and play, and making art out of what we're experiencing. So if you're experiencing anger, that can be an expression of love. It usually is an expression of love. And so how can you make art out of that experience and really embrace your life fully? So go fully into all of these emotions and the humanness that we have. And one of the phrases that I heard, that I saw like a meme on this, and it was, a lot of times people ask the question, right? Is it the destination or the journey? And there's like this little tiny dragon. I don't know if you shared this even. I don't know who shared it, but it was like the little dragon's like, it's the people on the journey. And that really landed for me, right? It's all about the relationships we have in our life. At least for me, like that's the definition sort of success, is this personal fulfillment and the relationships that we have. So it's connection, it's inner peace and fulfillment. And it's not this distortion of happiness. I think that's a falsehood that creates a lot of inner turmoil for people of like, oh, I need to chase happiness. But happiness is just an emotion, and it's great to want to be happy, but it's like, can you be fulfilled? Because happiness, it's going to come and go. And so can we attach to something greater, some greater meaning that's bringing us into life in a more full and nourishing experience? Because if you're just chasing happiness, you're going to meet sadness and grief and pain and sorrow and frustration and, name all the things. And that's part of life. That's part of the beauty of life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things in there. And I feel like it ties back into what you said earlier, like orgasmic relationships. And I'm going to want to dive deeper in that. But thus far on your human experience and your human, what do you define being human as?
So it's once again this paradox of like, at least fully for me, of going into the emotions. So one of the experiences I have that have really shifted my own awareness of this was I was experiencing, my partner and I decided to separate, to transition. And, people might say that's a breakup. And for me, that experience was this cracking open. And I remember I was like laying in my yard in Bali on the grass, just like crying into the earth, like in so much pain. And at the same exact time, I was experiencing this utter state of gratitude and love and beauty. And it was like sort of this super state where both were true at the same time. I was in such deep pain and such deep hurt, but I was also cracked open into so much more depth of love than I ever knew was possible. And so it's really about experiencing all of it. It's taking all of it. And like that moment, I felt so alive, like the most alive I've ever felt. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Because for so long I had been like, I want to avoid heartbreak. I don't want the pain. But going into the pain made me feel alive, made me feel human, made me feel like part of life, and not rejecting any of life, but fully welcoming it all in.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. And then I'm reading a book right now that actually, it's by Amanda Francis. She's a money coach. I don't know if you know her, but she is always talking about like the fastest way to growing and healing is embracing all of you, embracing all of who you are, all of the parts of you. And I know that you talk a lot about just like emotional alchemy and like bringing pleasure into life. And I love your hashtag, like hashtag pleasure diet. It's like in like your words and your journey and like your growth and transformation, how do you like teach your clients or walk yourself through just embracing, all pieces of who you are and what you're cultivating in this world? Like, what are some things that you always like bring yourself back to that you find has anchored you into this human experience?
Yeah, emotional alchemy is something I feel like we all needed to learn in elementary school, preschool, whatever. We need to learn that first. And it comes back to this piece of welcoming in all of our emotions, right? So, because if we don't welcome it, if we deny it, we try to suppress it, we try to shame it, or one of those things, it becomes the shadow. It becomes an unintegrated piece of ourselves. So, first and foremost is creating a container for yourself to welcome it in and feeling safe in that. So, maybe you're doing that on your own. Maybe you're doing that with a therapist. Maybe you're doing that with a partner, but creating a container where you can welcome it in fully. And then from there, doing some form of embodiment practice. So I love rage rituals. If I'm feeling angry, like putting anger on and letting that emotion actually be expressed rather than suppressed, because I've learned a lot about the nervous system through the work that I do. And right, a lot of people think, oh, trauma is in this specific event, it's a certain thing, but it's not. What trauma is one, it's stress energy, and then it's stress energy that hasn't been expressed or felt, so it dysregulates your nervous system. And so this is what creates sort of the kinks in the hose that creates all your trauma later on, that you're then repeating these patterns or having triggering experiences. Trauma is not in the event, it's in your response to the event. So if you can actually be in a triggering experience, and this might be a big T trauma, like a car accident, or it might be in a conversation with a friend. All of them are valid, because remember, it's just stress energy. So allowing yourself to experience it, to cry the tears, to not like, oh, men don't cry, or I can't cry because someone's watching. Like, let yourself cry. Let yourself go there. Let yourself feel it to heal it. That's a big phrase around these circles. So welcoming it in, feeling it fully, doing an embodied practice, sharing, being supported with community, and then letting it go, like letting it fully be, and then moving on to the next moment. Can be really powerful for emotional alchemy and being with life and knowing that that's a part of life. You can't just only have the good, like everything's two sides of the same coin. So if you can really wrap your head around that and really begin to embody that, it will change your whole relationship to life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so true. I definitely, when I started my personal growth and development journey, suppressed so much. So I really encourage those of you that are watching, if you're stumbling upon this video and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I do that, like invite yourself into the process of your emotions and letting yourself feel it all. I love that. And I feel like there's a really beautiful underlying theme that's coming through here when it comes to relationships, because your breakup really allowed for so much to come through. And it reminds me, like, for me, my breakup was honestly the start of my personal growth and spiritual and development and wellness journey that landed me to find my purpose and stuff. And so for men and women out there who may be experiencing heartbreak or a relationship ending and it just feels like the end of the world, what pieces of advice would you give, having been on the other side of letting yourself go through that breakup?
Well, before I answer that, I also want to echo what you said. Like, I used to numb my emotions to the extreme, and we'll probably get into that, but I used to totally, I was not always doing emotional alchemy and welcoming them in. Like, this is one of the most courageous actions you can do, is to be in this space. It takes the true divine warrior, the warrioress, to do emotional alchemy. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's like, I'm going to feel all the things. And sometimes that's scary and vulnerable. And I don't want to, but you need to. So I just wanted to echo that piece of did we learn? Yeah.
So worth it in the end.
So worth it. So worth it. So for someone who's experiencing heartache or breakup or that sort of pain, as I said, go into it, but be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. So for someone who is experiencing a breakup, heartache, this level of pain, I created a whole sort of transition ritual. So I'll share some key pieces of that. The first is to feel it, is to let yourself cry, is to let yourself be in that pain. The second piece is to make a list of what are all the gifts of your relationship? What did you learn? What did you value from that person? What did you receive? How can you have gratitude for this experience? A third piece is why are you not with this person? Like, why did it not work? Like, really take note of those aspects so you know going forward, like what you want in a partner and what you don't. And having that list, because when you're in a breakup, like this person's sort of camping in your head, right? Like all you can think about is them. You're like, oh, you're going through your mind of various scenarios of how could I make this work? Or if that's sort of where you're at, or maybe like, oh, good riddance. But either way, you're thinking of some of the drama and trauma from it. So if you can have this list of like why it didn't work, and anytime you start thinking about this person, you go back to that list, that can be really healing too. That helped me a lot of like, I love, and the other piece I'll say, love never goes away. So like have that tenderness in your heart space of like, I do love this person. That love is still there. And we're not meant to be together, and that's okay. But you don't need to necessarily like get rid of that love. You can be in a really whole place with it and just like honor that aspect of your heart and honor the time that you were together. And then knowing it takes time to heal. It takes time to heal. So like just be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. And that can be really soothing as you go on this journey of like cracking open your heart.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. And also just the time aspect. I know like I'm one of those people, I'm just like sometimes not patient, and especially when it comes to like the growth and development journey, or like when I'm feeling sadness, I'm like, I don't want to feel this anymore. And you only want to rush the process. What ways do you allow like that divine timing to like land in your space? How do you work with that when you're experiencing that resistance of like, this isn't happening fast enough?
I've been there so many times with so many things. So I love this question because this is the humanness. We want things now. We can think of it now. I want it now. And I know you're huge into human design, Shay. And I forget like which center it is, but like my main authority is like frustration when I'm not in alignment or whatever the thing is. I'm not as technical with it. But my main like experience as emotion is frustration. And so I've experienced this with business, with heartache, with just things in life in general. And my answer is like to offer it up, to surrender in prayer to God, to the goddess, to divinity, to the universe, whatever languaging you want to use, whatever you resonate with. Surrender it. I do a lot of change me prayers. I learned this from Tosha Silver, who I highly like. She has transformed my life. But it's like, you offer it up of like, change me into one who has the patience to navigate this situation, or like change me. Like I offer this burden of this heartache up to you. I can no longer like be with it. Like show me the next step of how I can move through this, how I can embrace this, how I can heal from this. Like surrender is the biggest teaching that is the core of everything I believe in this world. Like that's really been my lesson and initiation much more deeply this year of just like surrender, 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 surrender. And that's been really healing. So I offer everything up. If you don't know how, like you don't have to offer it.
I love that. And when it comes to surrender, I feel like some people hear that word and they're just like, surrender, does that mean I just like become passive to my life? I just like don't do anything? How would you describe surrender and your experience in it? And can you give an example of a time where like you maybe really just had resistance against the idea of surrendering, but it really served you, and what came out of it?
Yeah, the biggest myth and distortion of surrender is passivity. And yeah, that's a huge distortion because I feel surrender is one of the hardest paths you can take because the ego wants to control, right? The humanness in us wants to control, wants to make all the plans, wants to say, if I do X, Y, and Z, this thing is going to happen. And so there's so many layers to this. But surrender is really this one layer is surrender is acceptance of everything that comes your way. So being able to meet anything you're presented with, and then meeting it with like, is this in alignment or is this not? Is this a yes? Is this no? Or is this a no? And making decisions from there. But the deeper, another layer of it is it's a big act of trust. It's a really big act of trust. And you're very active in the process of that. So I've had so many scenarios where it's like, like a lot of times, if you're listening to your intuition, you can think of it this way, right? If you're listening to your intuition, a lot of times, I'm sure people listening, and you've experienced this as well, will have an intuitive hit, and it's not the thing we want to do. Like, right, you might know that, like, oh, I need to have the conversation with my boss, or I need to have the conversation with my partner. My intuition, my body is telling me this. And then your mind says, oh, well, like, I could just like not do that, or maybe I don't need to, or this or that. The chaos comes in. But the surrender piece is in listening to that intuitive hit and saying, okay, like, obviously I don't want to do this, but I know this is in greater truth of love and in greater harmony for my journey, for the journey of whoever I'm with or engaging with, or the thing. So I've had so many experiences of that realm where it's like, I get the hit and I don't want to do the thing, but I know the hit is the higher wisdom, right? Is my higher wisdom, higher self, God coming through. And then it's listening to that. So even recently, I had a really rather deep experience of surrender where I have been, vegan and vegetarian for 14 years of my life. And it was something that was always an unshakable truth in my life for ethical reasons, for earth reasons, for health reasons. I was like, this is always just going to be a part of my identity. This is always how I'm going to be in the world. And I got the intuitive hit from asking my body what it needed for better health, better energy, all these things. God came in, source came in, spirit came in and was like, it's time for you to eat meat. And I had a huge identity breakdown. I was crying in my bed of like, I can't do this. I don't know how, like, I don't know who I am anymore. And it was a deep act of trust and surrender that this was my initiation. This was the next path, like step in my path to surrender to eating meat. And even though my ego didn't want to, because of all these reasons, my soul needed that journey because it taught me so much of like trust, of listening to spirit, of letting go of labels, of questioning things that I thought I would never question. And it was a huge healing experience for me. Also, in just like self-acceptance, and not being scared of criticism or judgment and not judging myself. So that's a really recent example and experience I had with surrender. So surrender is the path of courage as well.
Oh, I love that. Surrender is the path to courage. That is so valid. Couple things that really came through from everything that you just shared there is, I really like to hear the different perspectives on intuition, because I truly believe that each of us as humans are born with intuition. I mean, if you think back in primal days or tribal days, it's just like we survived off of our gut instinct, and intuition and gut instinct are almost synonymous in my eyes. How would you tell the people who are watching this video and come across this, how would you advise in your way in tuning into intuition and being able to follow that voice and why it's important?
So intuition, if you're new to this, or even if you're not, you're building a relationship with your intuition. So at first you might question it. You might not be sure if this is right. You might just be in that space if you're not trusting your intuition yet. So just remember to be patient, and it's an active process of learning to build this relationship with your intuition. And the more you listen and the more you follow that, and the more you see how that plays out in your life for your highest growth, your highest development, your highest expression of love, you'll then be able to lean into it more and more. So just be gentle with yourself through that process. And I mean, I'll probably say that with everything, like always be gentle with yourself. And I view intuition in a few ways. So, right, it can sort of be this higher self, right? Your higher self, your soul level aspect of yourself, and also source and God. And I sort of have like 4 intuitive languages that I've learned through my Reiki training a few years ago that I love sharing with people, because we all receive intuitive hits differently. So you can either have clairaudience, or we have all of them. Let me preface that. We all have all of them, but we might be stronger in one, just as we are with a love language. Yeah. So we can learn to tap into all of them and then just gain our intuitive powers even more, which becomes really fun. So I would say there's clairaudience, which is sort of like you hear that voice in your head, and it's usually those messages are really simple and short. They're kind of like Yoda, like be still to go fast. Like it's like okay, that's my intuitive Yoda message And then you can have clairvoyance, which that's that's seeing visions. And usually those are in metaphors. A lot of times those come to me either in Reiki healings or in dreams. So I love working with dreams, and it's like this metaphor. So you might get a vision of an ice block melting. And this is about like, being the flow of water or something. You have to interpret it based on your own lens and experience. But usually in metaphors, I find clairvoyance to be. Then we have clairsentience, which is that gut feeling. So that's what a lot of people are really familiar with, of like, oh, I just have this gut feeling that like this is the right path or this isn't. And it's like a very embodied experience. And then there can be claircognizance. So this is sort of what people would call like the download. And it's just like this instant knowing that you have of something. A lot of times the way I channel that is through writing, or either, if I'm like walking around, I just like, sometimes get these intuitive hits. Or you can ask a question. And like, if you're writing, you ask the question. And if you just keep your pen on the paper, I find a lot of times that this like instant message will flow through. That's like purely channeled. And then, you can also get messages and intuitive hits from like, a billboard you see on the highway, or you listen to a song and like the one song lyric that actually sticks to your mind is like the exact phrase of wisdom you needed, or like through something someone says, you're in conversation and they say something and that answers the question that you had. So it's being really open to receiving messages in all forms. So I shared like 4, but then it's even expanding that even more, like just expanding it even more. Like we're constantly receiving messages and intuitive hits. So can you actually listen? And the ways we can listen, meditation.
Yeah.
Meditation, coming back to stillness, giving yourself that time and space to actually receive what's coming through.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I feel 2020 graced us with a lot of time and space, and people got to tune in. And I feel like in so many ways, this is the year that so many people like got faced with their stuff and just like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. I've been with myself so much. And that mind chatter comes up. But you had also talked about, like, taking it back to the conversation previous, just judgment and criticism, and how, at moments like you've experienced that. And I feel like we're living in a time right now where you can be judged and criticized for any viewpoint or opinion you have. And you might also be judging and criticizing yourself for the stuff that is coming up that like 2020 has brought up. And it's just been a culmination of life. And I love how you have this underlying theme of just like compassion and gentleness with yourself. I always tell my clients to and friends and myself, like, fierce compassion for all the human experiences and the emotions. But when it comes to judgment and criticism, in both ways, like from others and maybe even from the inner critic voice yourself, how do you navigate really learning to love those pieces and then staying anchored into your own truth around all of that? Because I feel like that's something that in this human experience of life, a lot of people are going through. And I want to empower others to realize that like it's so valid, but there are ways to alchemize this as well.
Yes, definitely. This is a human experience. We all have that voice chattering around in our head. Like, you could have said this differently. And I can't believe you did that. And that was so embarrassing. And why aren't you thinner? And going crazy. So the first piece of the inner critic, and then I'll speak more about like external critics. The first piece is I love sort of this aspecting exercise where you imagine the critic or whatever, the emotion or the thing, as this entity sort of outside of yourself. So you can imagine like, like a little devil sitting on your shoulder even, or whatever figure you want to make, or like someone sitting next to you. And you can have a conversation with this inner critic. And as I said at the beginning, right, bringing everything back to sort of like this play. How can you play with that voice of being like, okay, like I'm hearing you, and you know what, like, that's great, but that's not valid. That's not true. Like bringing some like lightheartedness energy into it of like, okay, I see you, because that aspect of self just wants to be seen, right? So if we don't see it and acknowledge it, if we keep on like, oh, like layer on these things of like, I'm not criticizing myself, it will just build up. So if you can sort of create this this entity and have a conversation with it, let it be seen, let it be heard, and then bring that play into like, okay, I hear that you're trying to protect me, right? A lot of times it's trying to protect you or something, or it's the inner child that's been hurt. I see this and that's so great. And you know what? Like, that's awesome, but like, you're false. Like, this is not real. Like, and then, adding in your affirmations or whatever that you can begin to connect with. That's one way that I love to work with it and that I guide clients with as well. And the other piece of like this external criticism, so this goes with both pieces, is, and I love how you said like anchor into yourself, because that's really what it comes back to for me is like, if you can anchor into your own truth of knowing you are living in your highest alignment, of you are in integrity with whatever the situation is, that can bring so much inner peace to the situation where then it doesn't matter what external things are coming towards you. So yes, we live in a cancel culture. We live in like a polarized environment where everyone is so highly charged with their beliefs and their beliefs being right. Everyone has their own perspective for their beliefs and their own journey that led them to those beliefs. But can you anchor into knowing that like your path is for you? And so many people, most people will not understand your path. And can you find inner peace with that? And if you can anchor into that, which is a practice, which takes practice, experience, situations, but if you can really ground into you, the noise of the outside will fade away. It will be just like whatever. And knowing too, like, whose opinion actually matters. So, right, I value the opinion of the people closest in my life, and I will take their feedback and like welcome it. I welcome their reflections, and also knowing like their reflections are their reflections, I'm on my path. But then knowing if it's someone outside of your circle, if it's just this random comment, this random thing, like this random person, they don't even know you. You don't know them. They won't understand your journey. Come back to you. And that has brought me so much inner peace. And that I feel like is the key to transcending criticism and judgment.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with all of that. And I also find like when my inner critic starts to come up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop here for a second. What is this voice saying to me? And then and then I do exactly the same thing. Like, okay, nope, that's not true. I find facts to disprove the story that is essentially coming up. So I love that you're like, bring it out as like an entity that's not who you are, because it's so hard when you're like in it to just like be like, oh, this is who I am. This is what the story is telling me, but that is just not truth. And then something I really like to inspire viewers with is in this human experience, we also, and I feel this is always an ongoing battle for some people until they start to discover who they really are, not who the world made them to be, right? Is just this sense of purpose. And I believe that we are souls inside of a body that came to this planet to experience a human experience and came with a purpose. But so many people believe purpose is synonymous with career. And although that can sometimes be true, it isn't always. So what is your viewpoint on purpose? How would you define it? And how would you encourage someone to find theirs?
Purpose. So also, before we get into that, I'll just echo what you said, like finding examples, disproving whatever your critic is saying, I think is so helpful. So I just wanted to, I love that piece as well. That could be really, really supportive. Okay. Purpose, right? The big question that so many people struggle over. I remember I had years where I was just crying, like so distraught of like, I know I'm meant for something big and I have no idea what it is. And like, what is my purpose? And like, I created this whole like big grand thing around purpose. And that just brought so much more weight and burden into it. But I also know this is a very real struggle that, we experience, especially if you're on this path, if you're awakening, you want to be contributing to something larger than yourself. I think that's part of our mission here. So purpose is multi-layered, as with everything. But I will say the first piece with your purpose is to come back to yourself, right? To ground into your truth and then follow what's lighting you up, and knowing that like your purpose is constantly evolving as you evolve. So what I'm doing right now, I was not doing 3 years ago. It's grown, it's molded, it's morphed, it's gotten more expansive, it's shifted. And that's the beauty of it, because you are not stagnant. So your purpose is not just this one thing. You're like, oh, I found my purpose, and now this is what I'm going to do forever. Maybe there's like 0.01% of people where that's their truth. However, I don't feel that is a majority of people's reality. And so like that can be, right, your career purpose, if we're speaking in that way, but I will bring it out. But follow what's lighting you up. So like my path, I started, I was doing Reiki energy healing and thought I was going to be just a Reiki master, which, I did the training and I do use Reiki in my practice, but like, I was like, that's going to be the thing. Then I was doing breath work and I was like, I'm just going to be a breath work facilitator. And that's the thing. And then I got into like yoga and I did a yoga teacher and I was like, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And that's the thing. And I kept going like, oh, and this is the thing. But then it guided me into another thing as I was finding, like on my own journey, what was lighting me up, what I got excited about. It would guide me into deeper and deeper layers. And now everything I'm doing is just a synergy of everything I've learned, and I continue learning. So this is why it's always growing. We're now like, right now I'm focusing on sacred sexuality and self-pleasure and tapping into your feminine, your deep feminine energy and essence. So follow what's lighting you up. Trust that it's going to lead you down a rabbit hole. It's going to guide you to the next teacher, the next thing that will then continue to guide you into like how you want to express your purpose in this world. But then even larger and taking it out of just like career realm, it's like, I think of purpose in sort of 3 realms. So, right, that would be like the third layer is like this career purpose, right? Your dharma of like, what is your service to the world? So you can think, right, how can I support people? And usually the way you're supporting people is your mess becomes your message, your pain becomes your purpose, your trauma becomes your triumph. So look at what obstacles you have overcome in your own life, and that will typically guide you to what part of your purpose is. So that can be really helpful if you're not sure, like, well, what have you overcome? How can you help others do the same? So that's a really good starting point. But then we bring it up, and I think there's also sort of like the cosmic purpose, which is to be an expression of truth and love. So that's with everything that you're doing constantly in every moment. And then we have sort of like this present moment purpose of like, your purpose is to just be fully present with the moment. Like, how am I cooking the cacao that I'm making? Am I being fully present with it? How am I within this conversation that I'm having? Am I being present with it? And that's also part of our purpose. And that's not tied to anything around career or money or anything in that nature. So it's multifaceted and becomes really fun, but like remembering your truth is your love, and then seeing how that spreads through service and through your moment to moment life.
I love that. That's so fun. Yes, I totally agree. I feel like purpose is multi-layered and there is just so many avenues, and I just like love to hear all the different perspectives. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but we're gonna bring it back a little bit before I feel like we could go on like a tangent about like so many other things. But I wanted to really allow your version of like feminine and masculine to land in the eyes of the viewers and in the ears of the viewers. And so I would really love to hear what like your message is with the work that you do in that aspect, because I know you touched upon it a little bit. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Okay. So feminine and masculine energies, whether you want to call them alpha and omega, yin or yang, universal energies that are within all of us and everything. So grounding it in there. And then I do feel that we tend to have an essence. Your essence might match your physical expression or it might not. So I'm a woman who is connected to my feminine essence. I believe that is my deeper nature, but you could be a woman who is more connected to her masculine essence. So something I learned from Dr. Pat Allen, she does amazing work with like communication and has like so many titles. I don't know all of them, but sort of says that the masculine essence is to do good is to feel good. And the feminine essence is when I feel good, I do good. So the masculine, when I do good, I feel good. Feminine, when I feel good, I do good.
Yes.
So for me, everything comes back to like, how can I feel good? Because when I feel good, when I'm taking care of myself, when I'm in pleasure, then I can show up for my clients. Then I can show up in the world. I can show up in my relationships. I can show up with everything. So you can just see like which one of those you naturally feel connected to. And like that can guide you to your essence. But then also we're always ebbing and flowing. So we need both. If you want to be an integrated human, I believe you need to be connected to both. So this is a lot of the work that I do with women is one, we go deep into the feminine. So that's like a majority of the work for sure. And especially with sexuality and with receiving. And I'll get into some of the traits around masculine and feminine. But a big piece of the feminine work is connecting to your inner masculine, because this is where so many women are disconnected. There's sort of two layers. It's either like we're over masculinized. That's a hard word to say. We're either too much in our masculine, because that's sort of what the feminine empowerment movement did, is it just has made more masculinized women, which there was a lot of benefit to that movement. We sort of needed that. And now it's created a distortion and sort of a frustration I see in many women that I work with. There's just this, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed, they're trying to do everything, and they've lost connection with their feminine. But we needed that because we need both. So it's finding a healthy relationship to your masculine energy, which is truth, which is trust, which is consciousness, which is your doer energy, which is giving, which is providing. This is your purpose, like, and freedom. Those are sort of the two big, like freedom and purpose are your masculine energetic. For the feminine, your feminine essence is about receiving. It's about being. It's about flow, where the masculine is logic, the feminine is quantum and like just mystical, right? And so feminine is this flow, this beingness, love and union would sort of be the two big words that I connect to the feminine. So feminine is all about relationships, and masculine is all about freedom. And those are like very simple ways to sort of download them, and sort of how I experience them within myself and with clients, but connecting to both to be integrated. But so many women have lost connection with their feminine. So if you think of how can you receive, a lot of people think, oh, the feminine is giving, right? The giving mother. That is a complete distortion. Yeah. The feminine is fully receptive, is receiving. If we want to get even into like the biology, right? Our physical makeup, the woman is taking, I don't know what language I'm allowed to use here.
Yeah.
You are receiving
like you receive. You. It's so true though. Yeah. No, everything is welcome here. Not have taboo.
Yeah. So it's like, how can you receive? How can you surrender? The feminine is surrender. The masculine is creating. And so when you can connect with those energies within and find your wholeness within them, you become so powerful. You become so potent. You become magnetic, right? Feminine magnetism is what I work with women right now. There's so many different layers, but that's a big piece of what I'm coaching women with right now. And it's a beautiful journey, and it can be really hard. It can be really hard because there's also not a lot of examples in the world right now of women in this space.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of women just doing, getting worn out, not able to receive, and being super unsatisfied. So I believe it's really important for women to learn how to connect with their essence, if that's their truth, and then move through the world from that space.
Yeah, I think it's so important. You really touched upon that. Like, we live in a hyper masculinized society. We very like masculine society, and I'm not even putting it in like a way that's bad. Like, it served us for so long, but I mean, as 2020 has taught us, and just like that doesn't work. It's not sustainable, and we do need the feminine energetic and the feminine essence. And for women, I'd say I'm going to say 85 to 90% of women, their core essence is feminine. And I know I personally was like so disconnected from mine. And I really love to work with like ritual, and I know you do too. And so like, what are some of your favorite rituals that you do to connect to the feminine essence, but like also like integrating that masculine?
I love this question so much. And I will say, everyone's feminine essence, so like your feminine essence is going to be different than my feminine essence. So it's like also knowing your feminine expression does not need to look a certain way, or your masculine expression does not need to look a certain way. It's not just a woman who's dressed up in heels being super feminine in that way. You could be wearing, it's about your energy. You could be wearing, jeans and a t-shirt and be fully in your feminine, and your feminine can also look way different than someone else's feminine. So I just want to give the freedom and permission on that too. There's no one way this needs to look.
Yes.
And okay. Some of my favorite, most potent, powerful feminine practices, like to connect with you, like it's embodiment work, right? It's connecting with your body, with your heart, with your womb. So one would be one would be to connect with your menstrual cycle as a woman. I know you're huge on this, Shay. We've talked about this before, but that, like when I started doing that a few years ago and actually aligning your energy with the energy of your cycle. And even if you're on birth control, you can do this. You can align with the moon, but like aligning with these 4 phases of your cycle opens up so much power and permission into your field. So like doing that is a super potent practice to connect with your feminine energy and actually be in flow with nature, because we are nature. So that can be really healing. And that's more of like, that's a long-term, lifelong thing that you're going to be doing, daily practice, but it only takes like, a minute or 2 to just start grounding in. But then like daily practices that I love are womb massage and breast massage. So I do these like every morning, every night, throughout the day. If I take a bath, I'm doing them. But even if I'm just sitting around, I might, just be rubbing my heart and connecting to my heart space. And I find embodied feminine practices that are unique to us allow you to connect more with your essence and through your body. And then dance. Dance is huge. Yeah. Like even right before this interview, I did a dance break with some friends. So like these practices don't need to be anything. Like I love ritual, and you can create ritual in the moment. Like it doesn't need to be this whole like elaborate thing. It can be, that's amazing. I highly encourage that as well. Like, right. Like take 2 hours and create a ceremonial bath ritual where you're lighting candles and incense and you're playing music and you're using all the bubbles and the salts and all the things. And then you do like a meditation, and you can do womb massage in there and breast massage in there and breathing in there and self-pleasure in there. And like all the things, create that space. And also it's like our lives can be so complicated, and maybe you're really busy. Maybe you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to add something else into my life. I'm a busy working mom, or I'm doing this or that and the other thing. Like it can just be for a few breaths. It can just be for a few breaths that you place your hands on your heart, you place your hands on your boobs, and you just hold them and you say like, I've got you. I love you. I am open. And like, that can be your ritual. So finding ways to like, let these work for you. There's a beauty in the micro practices, and then the deeper embodied, more sacred ritual spaces, but you can flow with it however you want. So dance would definitely be feminine. But then to honor the masculine, I've been doing a lot more of this recently as well, as like just stillness meditation, complete silence, because the masculine is emptiness. So while the feminine is fullness, like give me everything, I want more, more, more. The masculine is like, I want none of it. Like, let me just be empty. Yeah. And so I can find, if you want to connect with your masculine energy, like just being still in nature, sitting on a mountain, or if you don't have a mountain, just like sitting in your backyard or something and just breathing.
Yeah.
Silence, presence can be so nurturing, so nurturing.
Yes, I love all of those so much. I feel like I'm very much beginning of my day so feminine, and at the end of the day I'm like nothing, like airplane mode on my phone, everything. Love, 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 love. Okay, so like a few fun questions that I always like to close these interviews out. And just thank you so much for sharing all of that wisdom. I know so many people are going to take beautiful perspectives and knowledge bombs from this conversation. But what is your current favorite mantra?
So this has been coming through for me so strong the past few days as I've been in deep reflection with the Great Conjunction and the winter solstice. I've been taking so much more stillness time. And at first there was like a lot of fear around that, because it's like, well, if I'm not doing, like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with this? And da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Be slow to go fast. Be slow to go fast.
Yeah.
And then one, I think that I have like a few that I'm always sort of circulating through right now. And I don't think you told me this, but I know we've talked about it, is like quantum leaping miracle to miracle. So like think bigger, or like we don't even need to think bigger, but be open to allowing things to happen in a bigger way than you can ever imagine. And like there's a lot of value in like these small, slow steps that you take every day, but then also knowing at the same time, like things can just shift and being open to that.
Yeah, love. And I'm a projector, and I am like an information gatherer. And so I'm like in my human design and even in my Enneagram, I love information. I love to learn information and learn from teachers and other people. And I just feel like that's a part of the human experience. Like we get to learn about life, which means we get to learn even more about ourselves. So I like to share for the people I interview, like who are some of the people that you are rabbit holing with right now, that you're like loving learning from, or a mentor that has really stuck with you that you would like to share with us today?
I have so many. So I love this because we are not like on this journey. We need support. We need community. I don't say we need many things, but like if you are on this journey of spiritual growth, self-development, like soul expansion and purpose living, find your tribe, find your sisters, find your brothers, find your mentors, find your teachers, find your healers. Like you need all of it. You need all of it. I would not be who I am without like my whole team. You need your whole team. So give yourself that. And some of my favorite teachers right now would be Matt Kahn. I love him. He's amazing. Like,
yes.
So much wisdom. These people you can find on YouTube. Like he just, everything. I'm like, wow, pure channel amazingness that just explains life. I love Tosha Silver. I mentioned her earlier. She's been huge for my journey of surrender and prayer and just like being in the flow and offering everything up. I've learned so much from her. She's a great book even about like finances called like, It's Not Your Money. And that even just the title, like, it's not your money.
Yeah.
Whoa, that opened up so much for me. I love John Wineland for relationships and masculine, feminine energetics. And then I would say also like nature is my biggest teacher. So right now, like I'm in winter, right? We're in winter and I'm learning about like death through winter and just like being in that energy of the season. So like or even right, if you're looking at the ocean and like the flow of the ocean, like tuning into nature, the animals and the birds can be such a great teacher. And then everyone is your teacher. So, right, like one of the phrases I love, I forget who said this. I think it was Ram Dass, but my friend told me it and it stuck with me. Like everyone is God in drag.
Yeah.
So like everyone is your teacher. It can be the store clerk at the post office. It can be your friend. It's definitely your parents. Like let everyone be your teacher and be humble enough to know that you know nothing. And like, you obviously know some things, but like, let yourself be open to receiving the wisdom that anyone wants to share with you. And every moment is a teacher.
So beautiful. I love that. And to close, my final question is, how do you cultivate and bring more joy into your life?
Ooh, how do I cultivate and bring more joy into my life? So first is the pleasure diet, like literally setting intention every day. Shay mentioned this on Instagram. I talk a lot about this in my stories, but it's bringing pleasure into every moment that you can. So like in the shower, for example, I'll use essential oils to like make it more pleasurable. Like, or if you're drinking your coffee, like use your favorite mug. Why are you saving that for some special occasion? Or like wear your favorite outfit, like bring pleasure into each moment that you can. And just, more joy in my life is through the people I'm connected with, just like being goofy and allowing, like, there can be so much, oh my goodness, so much spiritual density. And like, there's a reason for that. There's healing within that. But like enlightenment is about lightening up. It's about like being able to laugh at this cosmic joke. Like everything that's happening is hilarious. You might not think it at the time, but everything is a gift. Everything is a gift. Like if you can just say like, thank you for this, I have no complaints. Your pain is a gift. Your joy is a gift. Like every single moment is a gift. So really receiving it in that way and having gratitude in that way and like playing with the moment, playing with the people in your life. And then self-pleasure. That's an instant way to bring more joy into your life. Although I will have a caveat, it's like an alchemical healing modality. So it might not always be pleasurable or joyful, but a lot of times it can be. So I'm huge on using your sexual energy for healing and joy and magnetism and letting yourself like let that energy flow through you.
I love, yes, that reminds me of just like all of it. It's a and both type of world, like an ampersand life, like Angelie says. It's like everything's an and. It's like pain and joy. I heard it with Shay when I was working with her. It's like orgasmic grief in all of life. Ooh. So I love all of that. And where can people find you and connect with you and work with you if they would like?
Yes. So right now I'm on a bit of a social media break, but my Instagram is Serena V Amoroso. So SERENA V AMOROSO. I'm also revamping my YouTube channel. So that's going to be really nice for short nuggets of wisdom. So that will also be Serena V Amoroso. Podcast with the same name where people come on, they talk about their shadows and their light. And then there's also short little nuggets of wisdom. And then my website, Serena V Amoroso. And those are the best ways to contact me, connect with me, feel my energy. I'm in the void right now, the unknown of what's next with clients, but I have a few things that are probably coming through for January, maybe February. I'm feeling really called to doing some sort of sex magic course or just a feminine magnetism container that dives deeper into, emotional alchemy, aligning with your cycle, masculine energetics, sacred sexuality, de-armoring, all those sorts of juiciness, that feminine initiation, like connect with your deep feminine. So that's what's on the horizon potentially.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for today and this conversation and sharing yourself and your time and your energy with us. I know people are going to love this episode. Thank you everyone for watching. Everything will be tagged in the show notes, and be sure to reach out to Serena. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.